Well, Reject Nation, at midnight tonight, the final episode of Season 1 of Loki airs. So, with that in mind, we'll be checking out new Rockstars Loki, Final Villain, Top 8 Suspects, full investigation. We have our thoughts. Let's see what's going on here.
Welcome back to New Rockstars, I'm Eric Voss, and as we look ahead to the Loki finale, who the hell is in that castle at the end of time? Who created the TVA and its timekeeper robots? And are we guaranteed to be Ralph Boner
It's
yet
Casey.
again? Well, I wanted to make my best arguments for and against all top 8 suspects.
For and
that
against.
hopefully we can all go into this finale more open-minded for the possibilities, rather than clinging to one expectation that some might base their enjoyment of this whole show on the validity of. Look, folks, Kang and Mephisto might heat up a party, but you don't need them for an enjoyable night of tabletop gaming. I think I know what that means. Well, let's start with suspect number 1, Kang the Conqueror, aka Immortus, aka Nathaniel Richards, aka the Pharaoh Rama Tut. How many of these are there? Aka Mr. Gryphon, head of King Enterprises, the company that overtakes Stark Tower in the comics, and the latest Loki Easter egg pointing in the direction of Kang. Now, many skeptical viewers are comparing Kang to Mephisto in WandaVision, just another goofy big bad from the comics that nerds are making mountains out of Easter egg molehills to justify. I mean, that could be the case, but the truth is there are far more clues pointing to Kang's arrival than we ever had for Mephisto. With Mephisto, our evidence was cryptic mentions of devils and demon spawns, satanic imagery, and parallels to a comic storyline in which Mephisto was the villain behind it all. But by episode 7 of the show, the series revealed it was Agatha all along. But with Loki, very different situation. Headed into the finale, we do not have an Agatha all along yet. There's still some man behind the curtain. And unlike Mephisto, Kang the Conqueror has been confirmed and cast in the MCU.
Yes.
And spoiler warning for Black Widow, seriously, if you haven't seen it, skip the next 10 seconds or so. Marvel Studios just proved it's not afraid to introduce big names first on Disney Plus shows, with mystery woman Val appearing on The Falcon the Winter Soldier before her cameo now in Black Widow.
But let's not forget, that Val cameo was supposed to first appear in Black Widow before Falcon and Winter Soldier. That was originally slated prior.
Yeah.
That wasn't intentional.
And I bet they think they're lucky stars once the Disney shows were a hit, so they're like,
Yes.
okay, this will introduce it just as effectively.
Just gotta point out that caveat there, okay?
Of all the TVA judges in the comics they could have chosen, the writers picked Ravonna Renslayer, arguably best known as Kang's romantic interest. Similarly, Alioth. The writers could have made up a smoke monster or picked any number of lesser beasts from Marvel lore, and they chose the one best known for threatening Kang's temporal empire. The Void's possession of the pyramids and the Sphinx mirrors the historical trophies Kang keeps in his Chronopolis kingdom. The central timekeeper that the cinematography keeps focusing on looks like an android Kang could have made in his own image. Kang Prime in the comics does reside at the end of time, where this citadel is located, and Loki is a time travel series. Kang is Marvel's ultimate time travel villain. It just lines up. Now, if the Void is made up of things that the TVA pruned, and if Kang were running the TVA, why would they prune things from a Kang-dominated timeline? Well, if the TVA is all Kang's machinery, the Void's true purpose could be to collect things that Kang actually wants, and Alioth could be the snake in his garden that Kang needed Sylvie to slay. Or Kang could be a TVA prisoner kept in solitary confinement, and Alioth was keeping him there. Look, it might not be Kang, but anyone who says that it's definitely not Kang is either dismissing a very likely possibility for just being too obvious to them, kind of like what Mobius said,
It's always the game within the game with you guys, which I respect.
or people are just afraid of looking wrong after Mephisto. To which I say, if you like this stuff this much, being right isn't gonna make you cool, so just be the greater fool and own it. And that brings us to suspect 2.
Real quick though, I'm constantly back and forth. I've sold myself, and we talked extensively about this in our spoiler discussion of the last episode, so I'll keep it very brief here. I ultimately don't think it will be Kang, yet I won't be surprised. If it is Kang, I'll be like, oh, okay, cool, it's Kang. But I just don't think it's going there for them to introduce this super villain, this big baddie in the final episode of this show, when the only way you would know that is if you've read the comics. And I feel like for there to be a big reveal just within the context of the show itself, it would have to be something where audiences who don't even read the comics would be like, oh dang, I should have guessed that.
Yeah.
You know, not that it should be obvious, but more like that's a good reveal. That's how good reveals work, is I should have seen that coming.
Yeah, so you at least have a chance to piece together or go back and look at the kernels of.
King Loki. Trailer footage shots still yet to be shown on the series show a smug Loki on the throne of Asgard.
That's
and
who
another
I'm
shot
opting
shows
for.
Loki back in Stark Tower, redoing the events of the Battle of New York.
Glorious.
We know the TVA targets Lokis in particular, and since this show is about Loki variants, it would make sense for the man behind the curtain to be some alpha Loki who created the TVA in order to erase all other variant competitors to his rule, and one who would represent the darkest parts of Loki's soul that our protagonist has been battling internally. Now, you could also say this might contradict the trajectory the series has been following, right? Like, each episode introduces us to increasingly diverse Loki variants, each with a different face, from a female to an old man to a kid to a reptile. So to pull back the final curtain just to reveal the face of Tom Hiddleston again? I mean, I don't know. Loki just did that in episode 5, opening the hatch to President Loki, and then shortly after, the show turned him into a kind of a joke. So it might seem like a step backward to reveal yet another Tom Hiddleston Loki, but evil this time, even though we spent 2.5 movies with that version of the character already. Folks, these trailer shots could just be visions of a hypothetical timeline in which Loki rules as king, illusions conjured by whoever is behind the curtain to try to tempt Loki.
I don't fully agree with what Eric just said, because I still think thematically it lines up pretty well.
Yeah.
You pointed out that this shows so much about like self-confrontation and all that. I think that'd be a pretty crazy reveal, actually.
Yeah.
The whole time we're trying to take down the big bad behind the TVA, you know, you go to the void and it seems like it's mainly just Loki's.
Yeah, absolutely.
To me, it would be kind of crazy. They're like, oh my god, the person we've been trying to take down, you know,
Us, yeah.
and then you end the show with a good Loki and a evil Loki. What if it actually was the Loki behind Infinity War? What if he had classic Loki's story and ended up surviving?
Plus, I don't know. I mean, like, we've seen so many other Lokis that are a joke. Would be kind of a also reversal on that dynamic to have one who really did build this, like, incredible machination through time and space.
That he is the superior Loki. That
Exactly.
he is the variant Loki, the one who didn't die, but the one who survived and won, since Lokis are destined to usually lose.
Yeah.
Now, just to cover our bases, we could look at suspect number 3, Mobius, with his perceived inconsistencies of not remembering leaving ring stains, not remembering an alligator Loki, as a sign that there could be some other Mobius variant, or Mobius could be a Loki variant. But it does seem like Owen Wilson was cast on this show to be a foil to Loki, not to be some maniacal, crazy big bad. He seems like he's there to represent the aw shucks innocence of the TVA workforce, and of course to ride a jet ski. Really, for it to matter that some characters are Loki variants, a lot of the other characters must not be Loki variants. There's only so many times you can play that card.
I mean, yeah, I see you say that would be a Mobius variant.
Yeah, basically.
I don't think so. I mean, I could see a scenario where it could hold some weight.
Maybe if they do some kind of He Who Remains tie-in with him or something like that, like what makes him the most special. I could imagine something.
I think whatever it is has to complete its story context-wise more than anything else.
Yeah.
More than big universe building.
Yeah.
Similarly, suspect number 4, Renslayer, already has a role to play in uncovering this mystery. So to reveal a Renslayer variant behind the curtain might muddy the current Renslayer arc and set up a weird Renslayer versus Renslayer conflict. Is that how we want the show to end? Now
Nope.
there is suspect number 5,
No.
Casey, not seen since episode 2.
Let it
And some
be
are saying
Casey.
The name Casey is a clue. K-C, Kang the Conqueror. I'm sorry, I'm gonna pass on that one. But suspect number 6, Miss Minutes, is worth considering.
I would love it if it is Casey.
I would too. I would be very happy. Just sitting on a mountain of infinity stones at the end of time.
Oh man, that'd be hilarious. I mean, it would upset so many people.
It
but
would be the biggest Ralph Boner of all.
We still don't know what she is. Like, she can transcend both digital screens and real space, and she is close enough to the heart of the TVA to access confidential records and lie on behalf of it. And Tara Strong teased that there's so much more to be revealed, and that you don't really know who she is, where she's from, what her origin story is, how sentient she is. Miss Minutes could be the public face of whoever is controlling the TVA, and Sylvie's vision glided up to that lit tower and stopped at its golden glow, maybe connected to the color of Miss Minutes. And in this case, the one controlling the TVA might be no one, and it's all part of some self-perpetuating clockwork with mechanized puppet authorities. But what threw me was the way these android timekeepers laughed when Sylvie decapitated one of them. Pretty weird response. I read that as some maniacal puppet master who might have even wanted Loki and Sylvie to make this discovery. And that brings us to suspect number 7, Dr. Doom.
Before we dive into Dr. Doom on this Miss Minutes thing. See, if you look at Tara Strong's quote, yes, she's saying you can cryptically tease that you'll see her again, and that there's much more to be revealed, and that it's fun to watch that unfold. I don't know how much of that really pertains to knowing who or what Miss Minutes is. She's doing this whole description. I felt like that was more of a comment on why she loves playing this character, Miss Minutes, how there's so much she can fill in the blank for on herself, that there's so much not really known about her character. It's the one I am not on board with, not because I'm like angry at the thought about it. I don't believe it. It would actually be the one I'd be the most like, oh wow, I'm surprised how wrong I was. I'd be the most surprised at how wrong I was about that one, to be honest.
Yeah, I have the most trouble justifying it in my mind, and I do think that also potentially with the amount of things that get leaked about these shows, probably that Marvel doesn't want, maybe they let her kind of have fun with this as a means of muddying the water and getting us further from the truth.
Honestly, her answer sounds like a misdirect in so many ways.
Yeah, it could be a tease, or maybe it's just like, this is a new character created for this show, so I can kind of do whatever I want, and that's really fun for me.
Dr. Doom, whom some are connecting to the European-looking castle, the androids they say being similar to Doom bots, and the possibility that sorcery could have been used to enchant the TVA to block out the other forms of magic. But unlike Kang, Doom has not yet been cast or even confirmed for the MCU. He's coming someday, but probably not in the next few years. I think the people who are pushing for Dr. Doom are just comic readers who find Kang too confusing. But in my breakdown, I brought up suspect number 8, classic Loki.
I like this in
that
real
he
life.
might have faked his death with Alioth, similar to the way he confessed to faking his death with Thanos. I like this better than King Loki because it still checks those boxes of Loki facing an alpha variant of himself while letting Richard E. Grant continue to shine. Think about it, classic Loki is insanely powerful. He casts complex duplicates, creating teleportation portals, conjuring a full Asgard Emerald City illusion, and in his final seconds, as he was wiped away by Alioth, he let his green magic fade from his hands, and he was laughing in glee, and notice how his cape seemed to dematerialize before Alioth got to him. I'm definitely getting some vibes of Obi-Wan surrendering to Vader to become more powerful than you can possibly imagine. And classic Loki had that interesting response to Mobius earlier.
So just like that, you're turning on the very thing you devoted your life to.
It's never too late to change.
It's just hard to tell with him because Grant is so good an actor. He released that single tear as light and wind pounded his face, which could have been him accepting his fate or feeling a kind of excitement for a different long-awaited release. Now you may be asking, why would classic Loki slum it in the void if he was really running the TVA from that castle beyond? Well, if we're really going by the man behind the curtain logic, classic Loki's theatrical costume could be a duplicate illusion.
Yes, that's exactly what I was about to say. That's exactly what I was about to say.
Maybe the only thing that can subdue Alioth is enchantment, the one form of sorcery that he does not appear to have, because unlike Loki L1130 and Sylvie, he never had a connection with another. He lived his whole life alone on a remote planet. That could be why he wanted Sylvie and Loki to come here, why the Timekeepers laughed, why Lokis have been targeted. I think whoever is the man behind the curtain, one safe bet is that they will refer to themselves as He Who Remains. That's the title of the elderly TVA agent at the end of time who engineers the Timekeepers. And I say that because really any of these suspects could be He Who Remains, or He Who Remains might just be a completely new face, or even just a note left by a guy named He Who Remains on a Miss Minutes wall clock connected to a bunch of cogs and levers, reading, "Out to lunch, see you in a minute." And based on all of the evidence, folks, it's just hard not to imagine that whoever it is, if it's not Kang, it must have been someone who created the TVA at the behest of or in response to Kang. Like, even if Kang is reduced to a post-credit cameo or no sighting at all, his fingerprints are all over the series. And we're not talking devils in the details. These are intentional clues. So if you are still in the Kang gang after all this, I will be there with you because Mephisto's getting lonely in my daily mentions. So where am I at? I guess I'll say classic Loki, He Who Remains, and a rivalry against Kang with Miss Minutes as his automated assistant. But I'm not betting the house on that. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at EAVoss. Follow and subscribe to New Rockstars. This is my final Loki theory video before the finale, so I will see all of you on the other side.
Till season 2.
Bye.
Till season 2.
Awesome. I've said it many times that regardless of the actual villain is, in the show, it's still building to King the Conqueror. It has planted the seeds for King the Conqueror the most, apparently.
So you're still right, even if it's not right now.
Yeah, exactly. And I wouldn't mind like a little Kang cameo, like in a post-credit scene or something.
Yeah.
Since the post-credit scenes are usually designed to set up an upcoming installment of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah. You can look up and grin.
Actually, you know, it would be kind of cool because Avengers ends with, after Loki was the main villain, ends with setting up Thanos, the real big baddie of the MCU. Now that Thanos is gone, Loki, the series, could end and set up for King the Conqueror.
And Loki will just live out his destiny setting up the new big bad for the next phase of the MCU.
All right, guys, leave your thoughts down below. Subscribe, click that bell, keep a lookout for our Loki episode 6 reaction. Should be up in hopefully less than 24 hours from when this video has been uploaded. And let's do a pick.
Justin! I bet it's you at the end of time. You know why? Because you're so mysterious. All I know about you is that your name is Justin, and there are a lot of great Justins out there. Justin Lin, our friend Justin Karanugan, you. But Justin, I mean, listen, if you are the big bad at the end of all of this, all right, how are you going to explain yourself to the people? All right, how are you going to keep yourself hygienic? By nail clipping, that's how. You are judicious, you are universal, you are substantial, you are tenacious. Gotta get a better word than that next time. You are indelible and you are nutritious. Just thinking about you here in this moment, I feel enriched and I feel empowered about my life. So, hey, it doesn't matter what the ultimate answer is, Justin. It's about the friends we made along the way, and I'm glad you're one of them. Thank you for sticking around for all of our silliness and for supporting us both here on YouTube and on Patreon. It means a lot. Hope you're doing well. Be well.
Oh, my God.